right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Before we change these topics, we're going to talk about MPs in the mad rush to change elections law 4 months to the polling day. Let's see what you're saying really quick on the first topic that we talked about on Twitter before we move on. And Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV, can you use the hashtag Daybreak? Engineer Lazaro says, Mr. Okot, former First Lady as an investor and a senior citizen, she has every right to give direction in whose hands we are safe. Okay? Uma says, what Mama Ngina said is not wrong. The old lady just voiced her opinion, just like Okot would whenever he visits Kapedo. Of course. Okay, Tola says, it comes to a time when the phrase, kila mtu akae na mama yake, becomes a very strong and important point. Come on. Okay. Paul says, Mama Ngina has caused a dent in the Azimio camp. Endorsing Raila does more harm than good. It makes him look like a pet project for the state and the founding families. Okay? Mm-hmm. LJ says, in Russia, Putin completed his presidential term, became a prime minister, then came back as a president again. Ending a presidential term does not render a retiring president innate. They have a choice of whether to engage in politics or not. Uhuru is not an exception. Okay. Those are your voices. Keep them coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. MPs in mad rush to change elections law. That's on the front page of the Daily Nation. 4 months to the polling day, members of parliament are in a rush to amend the law to allow for physical transmission of election results in areas without 3G mobile network coverage, to have their nicknames accepted by the election agency, and to block poll petitions pitting MCAs from going beyond the High Court. Because I'll start with you on this. Is this a reasonable quest, considering there are places that don't have 3G coverage, but yet this was cited in the Supreme Court as one of the malpractices, the manual results?
Well, let me say this. I've always maintained that it's a bad idea to change an election law in an election year. Mm-hmm. And what we should try and do is maintain the same law, and if, when temperatures die down, we could look at some proposals soberly. But in this particular year, when we have all the tension, it doesn't make sense to make these changes. And then in terms of manual transmission of results, you know, for those who remember the 2007 situation, it brings back a lot of horrific memories, because they are saying that what they would like to do is at the tallying center to simply have physical forms there that can be altered by hand, and then they simply announce that as the final figure. And that we are saying, you know, we have had a terrible experience in 2007 when that happened. We remember cases where figures were just changed at random, and eventually results were announced which did not tally with what people knew were actually the results on the ground. Okay. So we do not want to go down that route. We would hope also, you know, there's the other thing about this kind of changes. Where is the public participation? Because it's a requirement by the Constitution. And because this is such an important issue, we would hope that, you know, when you have 4 months to go to the election, you don't try and make these kind of changes. So these things, as far as I'm concerned, are ill-advised, ill-timed, and should not happen.
Okay. Mweke?
Yeah,
it's a strong no from Kosgei.
I agree with Honorable Alex Kosgei here. You know, some of the ideas might be good, but the timing is wrong.
Yeah.
The Supreme Court made some of these decisions nearly 5 years ago. What has Parliament been doing for 5 years? Why must they come and now decide that they want to change those laws now? And sometimes in politics, perception becomes the reality. We can see the government has put its entire weight, led by the president, on one side of the political divide. So the other side of the political divide is going to start wondering, is this a trick to make sure that they use whatever means to ensure that we are disadvantaged in this coming election? So it raises temperatures, it creates suspicions, and I think it's ill-advised.
Okay.
Kriegler, when we had our 2007 post-election violence, and Kriegler came in to look at the whole electioneering thing. Mm-hmm. One of the resolutions from the Kriegler report was that an electoral commission should be in place, fully constituted, 18 months before an election. That was there for a reason. It was there for preparedness of the election, so that there's an electoral commission that's in place a year and a half before the elections, and it does all these things way before we even get into an election year. So now here you're pretty much changing the goalposts in the middle of the game. And I think it can cause a lot of tensions and a lot of suspicions, and it's not good for us. Yeah. So I agree with Honorable Kosgei. It should be put to hold. Elections should be predictable so that everybody who's running for an election knows what the system is, what the process is, how things are going to be done, way before the election is ready, so that people can plan accordingly. But beginning to change things now is confusing everything, and it's a recipe for chaos.
But Dr. Court, you've participated in this before. In fact, all of you have participated in this before. The reality is there are certain places that don't have 3G coverage. In fact, IEBC is putting it at 11,000 polling stations. So what do we do then?
So first of all, I want to concur with Honorable Koskei and DG Mweke that we shouldn't really be doing this on an election year, especially 4 months too. And because I participated in the Supreme Court petition against President Uhuru Kenyatta, and this is one of the issues that we raised, the irregularities. Now, speaking of areas in this country, it is deliberate. There is today technology that actually can serve even the remotest parts of this country. Now, let me explain our experience at Third Way Alliance Kenya. When we started the Punguza Mizigo Constitutional Amendment Bill, we actually used technology to register voters' endorsement. And we went to IEBC and we demonstrated to IEBC that actually there is no magic about the transmission of our results. Can you imagine today, Trevor, about 25 million Kenyans, if I'm not wrong, use M-Pesa daily. 25 million. And we transact in billions of Kenyan shillings. If people can actually trust transfer of money from a phone, what is so magical about just transferring a vote, which comes every 5 years? So I think there is deliberate efforts to make sure that, the electoral laws can be manipulated even when the political class wants it. But what is more important for me at this stage is it calls for accountability. Like Mweke has asked, what has Parliament been doing for the last 5 years, especially after the Supreme Court decision that talks about irregularities and illegalities in the transmission of results? What has IEBC been doing in the last year? But remember, election is not just about that day of casting the vote. It's the preparedness as well. It's a process, including the continuous registration of voters throughout. So, look, in this country, people who are public officers are just lazy. All they just do is wait for a check every month for the years they are in. They don't do actually the actual work. Because today we'll have expected that IEBC will put all systems in place for the last 4 years so that in election year, there shouldn't be any qualms around changing the law, changing the rules. This is like going into a football match and then the referee said all of a sudden, we're going to change the rules. Of course, it speaks of suspicion. Don't forget, some of the politicians have said openly, and I don't mind quoting them. I think we had Honorable Sabina Chege of Muranga and Honorable Moses Kuria talk about how they stole from Raila and how they will steal from him. So if you're going to change now how we transmit the results, of course, antennas are up. That is, we are talking about theft, electoral offenses about to be committed. That is the warning we are seeing with this. And of course, the political class is a victim.
Janet, are you also reading malice in this?
No, without sensationalizing, it is important to understand what exactly is being changed. And I agree that without understanding, people could easily think that what is being changed would probably affect, or somebody would quickly read some form of malice. But when I see some of the things that really want to be changed, I would want to ask, for instance, those members of parliament who come from areas that do not have the 3G network, what other solutions would be there for them? Probably they are even the same people that are advocating for this, so that we do not sense, because those are the changes that are being made. The other change I see is a very innocent change, and which for me, having sat in the county assembly, with the county assembly of Nairobi and worked very closely as a CEC, I think I really support where we are talking about county assembly nominations positions, so that you find that the nominated members of the county assembly, none comes from Nairobi. They do not come from Nairobi. They come from all over the place because, it is cronies and all that. So that the interests of that particular county that is being nominated, that the nominations then is coming to serve, is not served. That is yet another. So what is really wrong about this? I agree that probably the timing is not right, but it is not illegal. So that, yes, it could have been better if it were done sometime earlier, but it is not illegal. So that it is not everything that is being changed. It is good for us to understand what exactly is being changed. Okay. Is it something, you know, substantive, or it is something that really serves our purpose? The question as to why now is really a critical question, because someone could have probably expected, as it is said, that elections be as predictable as it can, so that everybody sits here 1 year probably to the elections and they know the environment under which the election is going to be conducted. But going through the changes that are being proposed, I really do not see anything that is suspect. So it's just a matter of understanding. I think so.
Okay. From a political point of view, however, there is people can read an illegality, quote unquote an illegality. Because we lawyers say that for every general rule, there is always an exception. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with saying, like, this year, we are going to transmit results this way. But because we have mapped out area XYZ, we are going to make them an exception. But we are not being told that. So the whole question is about explaining and accounting for the actions you are taking.
So it would be better to line up the polls, because if it is clearly indicated that these are the 11,000 places that don't have 3G coverage, and therefore this is where we're going to have manual transmission, would that be better?
Well, maybe, but even still, I still think that it should not be happening in an election
at all.
At all. And just to answer what she said, you know, I think there's always a level of, I know it is malice on the part of that side of Azimio, because even when the BBI was happening, everybody who actually who has any political instincts knows that the reason why they wanted the BBI was to create those positions of Prime Minister, of Deputy Prime Minister and other things. But masked in all of that were a lot of other changes that were being pushed about maybe having ward fund, about adding, you know, money to county governments from 10 to 35%, from adding, 15, 35%, from doing this, from the you know, many other things were tucked in there to try and make it look like there's a global nice push for something good. But everybody knows there was one agenda, only one agenda. Now, on this issue, there is only one agenda. They want to change the transmission of results from electronic to manual, and they don't want to tell us clearly which places they want to do this. That is it. These other ideas that they are putting here about saying that they are going to have nicknames on the ballot paper, we're going to have Nairobi MCAs nominated like this. I mean, all of those are just things, smoke screen. They are just there to just confuse people into thinking that maybe there's something good here, or maybe there's a real push to do something, you know, positive. But the reality is there is only a single agenda. And this is one of the problems that we have been having, that, you know, there is always a level of dishonesty on that side. So I think what we would say and what we should agree on is, let's just put all these things aside. Let us stop trying to change the law. Let us work with the law that exists, and let us go to the election as it is, and let us try and have a free and fair fight without having all these things that are happening.